Perfectly timed, because it leads us ideally into our press review. Oliver Farry's here today. Nicolas Sarkozy then back at the head of the opposition UMP. Right. What are the papers actually saying then?
Well, the left-leaning Libération, which is not the biggest fan of the former president, says that Saturday's vote was a victory, but not a resounding affirmation of support. Now, that refers to the 64% of votes that obtained by Nicolas Sarkozy, which is quite a bit lower than the 85% that he won in the same election 10 years ago. Now, Nicolas Sarkozy will be now forced to strike a political settlement with his rivals. Libération's front page headline makes play with his former nickname, Hyper President, calling him now a hypo president. Now, that's a pun that doesn't really translate that well, but we can take it to mean that he's very much less the man he was. Libération says the same words resound within the UMP, sometimes gleefully and sometimes worryingly. Honey, I shrunk Sarkozy. So he's definitely, I mean, he's not a very tall man to begin with, but he's fallen in stature a little bit. Political returns are never easy, says Libération. It says the campaign was one that was fought in fairly swampy territory, what it says, and it ended with a fairly underwhelming score for the former president, and an exhausting battle will tear the right apart. Now, the hypo president, as it calls him, intends to gain in aggressiveness what he has lost in influence. But Libération concludes he will be a killer for the party more than a rallier. Now, in the meantime, Nicolas Sarkozy says he intends to set up a committee of former prime ministers from his political family so he can draw on their experience and advice. Members of those will include Edouard Balladur, Alain Juppé, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, François Fillon and Dominique de Villepin. Now, there are a number of people that don't really see eye to eye with Nicolas Sarkozy there, particularly Dominique de Villepin. Now, he has agreed to take part, says Nicolas Sarkozy. Now, that is definitely a come around, given that the former president once allegedly wanted to hang him up on a butcher's hook.
Exactly. So it sounds like a bit of an attempt at reconciliation. The press convinced?
Not entirely. The pro-business Les Echos says the plan is to wipe out everything and start again, which could prove to be difficult, given that 10 weeks of campaigning has roused Nicolas Sarkozy's enemies and revealed his own flaws. In reality, it says he's only dreaming of a fresh start for himself. Nicolas Sarkozy was a candidate hesitating on the line, having failed to realise how French society is radicalised, and he was convinced that he would be spared the hardening of French people's opinions towards politicians. In short, Les Echos says he's a candidate out of touch. Le Figaro is a little bit more positive. It focuses rather on the challenges facing Nicolas Sarkozy and the huge responsibility ahead of him. The right-leaning party says Sarkozy ran a robust but worthy campaign, which resulted in a record mobilisation of party members, an irreproachable election and a clear result. So Sarkozy is well and truly the winner, even if the victory was too modest to be truly triumphant. Among the challenges he faced, rally the party faithful without wearing out the message, renewal without losing his way, and being an opponent of the government without becoming a caricature of himself.
Sounds like the press thinks that this is rather a long way ahead then for Sarkozy.
That's right, and a run at the presidency in 2017 is by no means a foregone conclusion. He has a few other obstacles to overcome, not least the presidential ambitions of other members of his party. Le Parisien says that neither Alain Juppé nor François Fillon will yield any ground between now and the primaries in 2016. Neither will former party General Secretary Xavier Bertrand or Bruno Le Maire, who, having taken a respectable 29% on Saturday night, now puts himself in the running. Le Monde says that Le Maire, the surprise package of the election, has managed to deprive Sarkozy of the holy grail of renewal. And Sarkozy is now finding that the old magic is not working like before. His star has faded, and the wars on the right have only begun.
Stars faded, that's going to be welcomed by the socialists, presumably.
That's right. The beleaguered socialists will quite like this. President François Hollande has never really thought that he'd seen the last of Nicolas Sarkozy after defeating him in May 2012. Les Echos says that the president might even see Sarkozy as the government's trump card, creating the right conditions for the left to rally and the right to tear itself apart. It cites a high-ranking Socialist Party member who says that François Hollande is banking on his capacity for not frightening people in 2017, which is a sideways jab at Nicolas Sarkozy and also Marine Le Pen. Now, the far-right National Front leader was re-elected at the weekend with a Soviet score of 100% of the votes, explained by the fact she was the only candidate. Marine Le Pen is the only skipper on board, says Le Parisien. and she is in no doubt that she will be in the second round of the presidential election in 2017. She's playing on a tactic that has worked well so far, playing up France's secular republicanism that will be only a distant memory after years of mass immigration and submitting to fundamentalists.
Big weekend of politics it was, summed up beautifully by Oliver on the press review for you.